One and a two and a box bunk. Box bunk. Box bunk. Box bunk.
Well, happy Monday to you, viewer. You are just in time for another brand new live stream right here on the Long Box Punk. I am Chris, I'm the Punk, and I am joined on this special live stream by Deece. Thanks for hanging out with me, Deece. I'm glad that we could make this schedule work. We could get you on and talk comics.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, dude. So I know you just wrapped and you've got late pledges still open for Kill Stan issue number 3. Before we get into that series, I first want to know, like, what's your origin story, man? How did you get into comics? How'd you start creating? Like, where did all this start for you?
Comic books for me started, I often try to think back of when I first encountered them. To be honest with you, I mean, it seems like they're always ubiquitous in my life in some way. I think early on it was my cousins had comic books, my older cousins. I come from a big family, and I had some cousins who had some comic books, and I was aware of Marvel through the old Amazing Spider-Man and his friends, Amazing Friends cartoon, the old Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk show, the Marvel toys, things like that, like arcade games. And then, so I was kind of aware of it all and into it. And then one day at a birthday party of someone, a friend of mine, his mom gave comic books to everyone. And that was the first comic book that was ever mine. And after that, it was just, I'm old enough to where, we really didn't have comic book shops around a lot when I was super young. I mean, they were around, but not as ubiquitous as they are today. And I was like, I would just go to the 7-Eleven and they'd have a little rack in the back. It was just on the floor, and a couple, whatever they had that month is what you would read. I mean, I've always said, I read the first issue of X-Men 2099. I bought off the rack and I loved it. And I never found out what happened after that for probably 7 years. But I read that first one a million times,
Yeah. I still love Bloodhawk. I still think he's one of the coolest characters.
Skullfire will forever be a top tier character of mine. And the funny thing is, they released an omnibus recently. I mean, I've subsequently had all the comic books, but never really read them all, the whole series. So I bought the omnibus just to read the whole thing. And my God, it's a listless series that has it really has no rudder at all. It goes nowhere. The funny thing, if you notice too, the crazy thing about that book is I realized that they never address any of the characters, each other, or villains never address them. No one addresses them ever as their code names.
Really?
No, never. I think somebody calls Metalhead once, but almost always they use their first names. They never, they gave them code names and then just never, no one in the book ever uses them.
I've never noticed that. And that's one of those things, at this point, it's kind of been picked up as a trope of code names in the field, right? It's in movies, it's in comics, it's in video games, cartoon, all the things. But I never, I did the same thing where I picked up that first one because it had the blue foil cover.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. And then I, picked up a couple here and there. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I was like, I have adult money. I need to finish this run. I want to know what happens in this story. And then I think I collected up to 25 read everything consecutively, and I was like, I didn't need to have all 25
Yeah,
of it.
it turns out that nothing happens. Like they're never really a team. They're never
Yeah.
really called the X-Men. They're never like as soon as they're kind of together, they're not together again,
Right.
and they're just doing these and like it's characters come and go. You're like, what happened? And then like they kind of did a soft reboot of the 2099 line with the Doom thing,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Doom World or whatever it was called, and then it was even a different kind of driving point for this series. It's so funny because child Deece loves the 2099 Deece or
Yeah.
loves the 2099 series, but the adult Deece has gone back and read them all, and they're all pretty terrible, even by 90s standards.
I made the mistake as a kid. I loved the Thundercats cartoon, and I
Yeah.
almost hate even saying it because it's got a high place in my childhood.
Sure.
But I like they put all of that original cartoon on I think Hulu or one of the streaming things that I have.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I was working from home at the time, and I was like, I'm just gonna revisit the Thundercats. And I made a huge mistake by doing that because oh my gosh, it's so corny. It's terrible. Like I want to strangle Schnarf the entire show. Like, just shut up, you stupid. And like everybody's so whiny. I forgot how whiny Lionel was in the first season.
Yeah.
I couldn't get past the first 10 episodes. I was like, I'll give it the 10 because I want to see the Mum-Ra thing and I want to see the mutants and all the things. But like, oh my God, it's bad. And I just, for my respect and love of that series as a kid, I turned it off. I was like, I can't revisit
remember this fondly. Yeah. I mean, that is the reason they, like they don't let us vote before 18 and stuff because we're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, Thundercats is the best forever. And then you're like, oh, wait.
Forever.
My prefrontal cortex has developed and I realized this is garbage. It's just cemented in your stupid brain that it's great forever.
Yep. I mean, I can still, that theme song still gets me hyped.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if I need to wake up, I will put on one like that or always the X-Men animated series theme song. Like the shows that used to get me excited to watch TV, I now can listen to and like, get that energy going. And then it quickly dies and I'm back to like, I need to sleep. But I love that you, like when you mentioned going to the 7-Eleven, because if I've talked a lot about this over the course of the last year and a half of doing the show of like, I don't remember what my first comic was. I have no idea. I just remember going with my dad and picking up books or going to a Dollar Tree in our local mall. And they sold like 3 comics in packs for $1. And so I was getting a lot of that 90s Valiant Comics stuff, which I still love. And I've reread it, and I loved it just as much in the reread. So
some of that holds up. Yeah.
At least some of those hold up. Like it's early Barry Windsor Smith too on like Shadow Man.
The Shadow Man, I guess the Shadow Man's the standout of
Yeah. I've got the full run of that character. That was my first cosplay. Like I just am super down with Shadow Man.
Yeah.
But like I don't remember I doing the Dollar Tree, and I know I've started seeing those pop up with like the DC books. DC's doing a lot, it feels like, to harken back or make comics easier because with the compact line that are cheaper, right? So it's easier for a kid to have $10 or $10.64 after tax, whatever, depending on your state, of course. But like it's so much cheaper to get like All-Star Superman than it would be if you buy the full-size trade that's like $25 or $30, whatever the hell it is at this point.
Well, I think what DC's doing is something Marvel tried to do a couple, probably, I don't know, 5-8 years ago, where they did the pocket-sized ones. And realistically, I think what they're really trying to do is just fool kids into thinking it's manga. Because kids don't give a shit about comic books now. They just don't. I mean, yes, the exception proves the rule. Someone's going to be like, well, my kid, okay, shut up. There's kids out there. I know there's kids out there that read comic books, but very few. that this is not a thing that's getting passed down to generations.
Yeah.
Most of them are going to manga, and if they can at least give it in the format of manga, I think they feel like they have a better chance of getting to them. There's like a stigma around the comic book size for kids.
Yeah.
Yep. The Runaways actually Yeah, they did the like tsunami line
Mhm.
as the pocket ones for a while.
Yeah, and it also felt like they were giving different stories entirely in those pocket lines. Like I'm a huge Hawkeye fan and I love Kate Bishop. And when it was like Kate Bishop's Hawkeye, I think all three of those trades are that smaller
Yeah.
size. And I think part of it is because they also weren't like super bloody, violent, gory comics. They were like, oh yeah, like high schoolers, middle-aged kids, junior high
Yeah.
kids can read this and it's totally fine. And I, as a 39-year-old man, was like, yeah, this is great. I love Kate Bishop. This is such a cool comic. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
but
they definitely picked the stuff that was more entry level
yeah.
for for people. They're not putting their Punisher Max in a pocket
Right,
size
right.
for
Although it
kids.
would be fun to just
Yeah,
have Frank Castle like murdering everybody.
here you go,
Oh,
kids. Yeah, well, turns out high school kids are used to shootings, so
right.
they would resonate with they would resonate with the Punisher really well. Don't at me; it's statistically true.
It's statistics,
I'm,
right?
I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it happens. It's the reality we live in.
Yeah. And like if we're being honest, my mom hated that my parents divorced when I was in like 4th grade. And so my dad would take me to like the one comic shop we had
Yeah,
in the area, and my mom, to compete, would take me to the Dollar Tree and buy me comics there because she was always playing that stupid game.
sure.
Children of divorce totally get that thing. And I tried explaining that to my wife, and she was like, "That sounds really harsh." I'm like, "Babe, it's just true. Like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
true."
They got to buy your love. They're
Yeah, but like my
we were
dad would buy
children of the
me
we were children
uh
of the '80s. We didn't get attention. We just got people trying to buy our love. You
yeah, yeah. Or like, hey, I'm gonna buy you this Savage Dragon book that, we threw out anatomy, who cares?
Yeah,
Look at these boobs.
yeah,
And like, 10, 11, 12-year-old me was like, okay, yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And my mom was like,
Sweet.
you are not allowed to read that book. And I was like, I want all of these books
Yeah.
now. My dad was more than happy to oblige. But like, even that, those are things now that it's like, oh, kids shouldn't be subjected to like that type of sexual content when, before high school age. I'm like, no, kids are having sex in the bathrooms at like 4th grade. It's stupid.
Yeah,
Like, as my daughter was going through school and everything, she was telling me about that stuff and about other people that were doing this, or who, one of her friends got caught sneaking vodka in her water bottle when she was like in 7th grade.
jeez.
I was like, good God. She was like, yeah. And it's not just her. Like
Yeah,
there's a whole crew of people in that age demographic that are just doing, and like, I think back similar to the Thundercats thing. I think back fondly, right? For the most part, other than all the bullies and the stupid whatever. But like, I didn't do any of that stuff. And I don't know if it's because I was just sheltered, if it's because I went to a small Catholic grade school, or what it was, but like, we didn't do any of that stuff. And hearing her say that just so nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, she got suspended for a week because she had vodka in her water bottle. I was like, what are you
great.
talking about?
Oh man, I would have got along with that kid a lot when I was in 7th grade. Because I was the kid sneaking out. But here's the thing: I was like the one. Like
Okay, yeah.
there wasn't a lot. There wasn't like a bunch of us. It sounds to me like it's the norm now. When I was that age,
Yeah.
I was like the bad kid because I was doing shit. But
Yeah.
that's
So you were reading comics. You were getting them from the 7-Eleven. We hit X-Men 2099 and all of the X friends that there were.
yeah.
I loved all of the X adjacent books. I was, I'm a sucker for anything X-Men, honestly.
Same.
And so I like all of the X Factor, X Force, Excalibur, X Statics, X whatever. Like if you just put X in front of it, I'm gonna buy it and read it at least once. You know what I mean? Like, okay, who knows? But like what as you were growing and reading all of the random books that would show up, other than the X-Men 2099, like were there books that stood out to you that you were like, I don't think I've seen something like this before?
Yeah, I mean, so again, when I first started comics, it was like I only had I don't know 7 or 8 comic books for a long time, and I just reread the hell out of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, one of those books was like Shadowhawk #1,
Yeah.
which was really, I mean, you could debate on how much it holds up now. Personally, I think it's really what Jim Valentino was going for was really interesting, especially because you're talking early '90s, just coming out of the AIDS epidemic. It was familiar to me because my uncle died of AIDS, so like that topic was really interesting to me, even at that age. Like I was very familiar with it.
Yeah.
So I thought what he was doing was interesting. That was kind of a pivotal book. It wasn't really until it probably wasn't until I was like 14 that comic books hit me in a different way, where I was started reading things like, Dark Knight Returns. I started reading Watchmen. I started reading the Max, which to me is one of the greatest comic books of all time. Just a masterclass on mental illness, trauma, PTSD, trauma bonding, dissociative disorder, and how those things, really affect people, and putting it, such an interesting and intricate delivery system. Not to go off on a tangent, but when a lot of people read that book and they're just like, this is weird. And you're like, yeah, it is weird. But if you want to really dig into this, man, there's so much going on, and it's such a brilliant story,
Yeah.
The symbolism anyway. But so that's kind of when in my mid-teens is really when I started cracking it open and digging into older stuff. I kind of had my own money, so I could spend time in comic book shops, dig into older stuff, buy what I wanted, and really get into finding my foothold in what I really, really loved. And that's I think when it changed for me. And I just spent a lot of time because I get a weird trajectory. I dropped out of school in the middle of my 8th grade year and moved out of my parents' house when I was I wasn't even 16, right?
Okay.
And I was out, on my own. I was making money. I had money to spend, so I was spending on things I wanted. I spent a lot of time kind of maybe using comic books as a coping mechanism for things, and just really diving into the intricacies of the storytelling and digging deeper and deeper into the stuff that was the real meat on the bone stories in comics.
I mean, you mentioned Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, and like I didn't read those until in the last 5 years.
And really?
Even still, I was like, God, these are heavy. Like how in the hell were you reading that when you were so young? I would have been like, I don't know what's happening. I'll just skip the words.
I mean, like I said, I had a tumultuous childhood. Saw, experience, went through a lot of really crazy stuff early on. So stuff like that was like not scary to me or not off limits. It really actually it made me feel better because it made me understand that you can express these really dark things beautifully through art. It's part of the reason I watched A Clockwork Orange when I was very young, and then I read the book very young also. And to this day, that's still my favorite movie of all time. And the book is brilliant,
Yeah.
Because the writer of the book, Anthony Burgess, a lot of people can read the book or more so the movie and have a hard time with it because they just see on the surface, they see the rampant violence, the sexual assault, the depravity, and it's like, yes, all that is there, but it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
This is a story about, I mean, are you familiar with the story of Anthony Burgess, the guy who wrote A Clockwork Orange, his wife was actually raped,
Oh,
and
wow.
in like the 1950s in England where they lived, and his kind of catharsis for this was to write this book about the trajectory of culture, and if we kind of, in my opinion, prophetically predict this desensitized culture where we have dehumanized each other and don't value each other and don't value other man. We just look at each other as just things and don't, violence is not even looked at, just glossed over. I mean, how many things do you see online that you just scroll by every day because we're desensitized to it? And if you remember in the movie, Alex goes to jail when they break into a writer's house and kill him and sexually assault his wife. So he wrote, it's like literally, in the book or in the movie.
Crazy.
And if you start looking at it, you're like, oh no, this is all for a reason. He's forcing you to look at this so you can look at yourself, to look around and be more aware of what's happening and to be more aware of how we should interact with each other. So I just love art that really makes you crawl through the shit to find the good stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that specifically because I was captivated the first time I saw that movie. Like it was so just like brutally honest,
right,
that it stuck with me. And I was like, what in the hell? Like I had to watch it a couple times.
yeah,
I really appreciated it because that first time I was just like, oh my gosh.
You're just kind of stunned a little bit.
Yeah. And then after you get to the end of it, like I went and I tracked down the book, I bought the book, I read the book, and I was like, okay, now I'm understanding more of the story. And then I will rewatch the movie. And then like I've listened to the audiobook as well. And like as far as consuming the story in as many ways as possible, that's probably my top one because there's so many layers to it. I didn't know the story about his wife and like that's what influenced that part of that movie. But I used part of like the sexual assault scene where like the classical music is playing and they're chasing her through the theater. I used that. Yeah, like I used that scene in one of my college classes, and because we were talking about like just juxtaposition. My theater or my background is in like media and broadcasting and all of that stuff, and so we were examining like juxtaposition in cinema and like how it's used well. And I was like, yeah, there's this very peaceful, like elegant classical music playing while this incredible atrocity is happening to this woman. And like, I warned everybody before I even played it. I was like, listen, there's sexual assault that I'm about to show. And like, it's graphic. Like, it's not just you see the shadow or you hear the scream or whatever. Like it's pretty intense. And like one lady did get up. She was like, I'm so sad. I'm so glad that you said something. I'm stepping out.
Right.
And so like, we played it and it like, I could tell the people that had never seen it before because they were just like,
whoa,
what is happening? And even my professor was like, I'm kind of stunned that this came from you. Cause at the time I was like a quiet kid that was just doing my studies and there to learn. And then I come in with Clockwork Orange with that scene. And he was like, I'm going to ask you, we're going to talk after class.
You know what I love about that scene also, that is like really subtle, is that they're in a theater, but it's like a dilapidated, decrepit theater, which implies that like the death of art, right?
Yeah.
Like that type of art and expression has been replaced with just this rampant violence. Like it's a
Yeah.
very subtle way of because they could have just done it in an alley, and then you're like, okay, that scene happened. But the weight of putting it in this decrepit theater that's obviously dilapidated, no longer used, abandoned,
Yeah.
it has like this extra weight of, oh, they're saying more than just like this location matters,
Yep. Yeah, there's a
So,
reason it took place in that setting,
right.
in that moment. And yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because this is the second time that I've talked about that movie in like a week. And it's weird like that and the conversation of manga with American comics versus Western comics and their consumption and like the cultural intricacies of listen to me with these big words and with manga being just everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And comics are still just not, they used to be, and now it's gotten even more and more closed off and more collector instead of just read it to enjoy it, which is a whole separate conversation. But it's also like I told you before we started, I was just at a con, so I've been talking about the industry and all that stuff all weekend. So you're just getting the like, my sponge is full and it's wringing out all of the things that I've been talking about all weekend.
All right, man. I've been at a every weekend for the last 7 weekends. I think I've been at a convention somewhere. So it's like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's every weekend. I'm tired, but it's all right. I love it. So.
Yeah, same. So speaking of going to conventions, why are you at these conventions, Deece?
Well, I'm out there pimping my book, Kill Stan. We're on number 3 is about to come out. First 2 issues have been out for a little bit. And yeah, that number 3 comes out in a couple weeks, and just out there selling the book, man, trying to spread the mirth and get some eyes on this. Luckily, people have been responding to it really well, and it's been a great experience.
That's cool. I gotta say, I love the covers that you've got in this series.
Oh, thank you.
The tone of some of them where it's just like the black and the very dark, like crimson.
Yep.
Like just it's so simple, but it's so just like a striking, like, oh shit, what is like I had to open the book then to figure out like why is the cover like that.
Yeah.
And you've done some really cool things for Kickstarter with like the bloody variants and those sorts of things, which feels like very on the nose when reading the series, which also is kind of dark. And like, you started issue 1 with like a super dark scene, and it was like, oh wait, hang on, we got to go back in time a little bit. And I was like, how did you get it? Like, how are we? Was it when you were writing everything with that first issue and then through the series? Because I only read the first one so that I could, still have that curiosity coming into this conversation. I don't like to know everything before.
Yeah.
And so, but now knowing that you love Clockwork Orange like you do, some of that first issue even like answered the questions that I had of like, that's really dark. And okay, that's why. Like you're using the dark and the heavy to tell more of this. So for those that are unfamiliar, and I'll let you lead the conversation, all of the content, so that I don't give away something that you're like, I was trying to keep that secret. What is Kill Stan? What's the series about? And what's this 3rd issue that's coming out? What's the story that happens there?
Yeah. So the elevator pitch for the book is it's a suicidal ride through a vigilante's last stand. Basically, it's a story about a guy who wants to end his own life, so he decides to do it through vigilantism. On its surface, it's kind of a neo-noir crime thriller, but the reality is it is a character piece about one man's journey of personal loss and trauma and the crazy things we do when we feel like we have nothing left to live for. So, I kind of, the delivery system is this like vigilante crime thriller, but the reality is you're reading a character piece about a guy. The vigilante part is just the way to sell it to more people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you got to do that, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
find, because if it was just, yeah, this guy has suicidal tendencies and that it's dealing with, it's like, ooh, how, I don't know that I could sit through a full comic that's only just like going into those deep, dark spots.
Right.
Cause like that can get really difficult to like put on paper. Were there times when you were writing it that you were like, maybe I need to pump the brakes a little bit?
Short answer, no. I really, in art in general, I mean, I've been writing in some form or fashion my entire life. I've written for a lot of different mediums. I've published books. I do comedy for a living. Even in comedy, very different tone than what I'm doing here, but I don't ever pump the brakes.
Okay.
I don't nerf things for people. It's either for you or it's not gonna be. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna neuter something to pander to a few more people. Either pull up your adult britches and buckle up, or go take a nap.
Yeah.
That's it's one of the two. I'm not gonna compromise. Not to sound like a pretentious douchebag, but I'm not gonna like compromise what one would call their artistic integrity to make other people feel better.
Yeah.
So this is meant to make you feel. I don't want to say bad, but it's meant to make you feel things. It's meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It's meant to make you think about shit you don't want to think about, because life isn't all good times and roses and no problems.
Yeah.
This book was actually inspired by so like in January of 2020, my best friend, another comedian, took his own life. And then we rolled into COVID soon after that, which I don't care how anyone out there feels about it. The reality is it did it really crushed a lot of people, whether physically, financially, mentally, spiritually, it would just broke people. And I think a lot of people, most people, are still suffering some sort of residual PTSD from that, whether they realize it or not. And during that time, again, I'm a little more self-resilient, done a lot, seen a lot, been through a lot. So it was a little different experience for me. But it did make me think about my friend. It did make me think about what everyone was going through.
Yeah.
And what you might, if it was the end, if really you had nothing left to live for, if really, you'd given up on the idea of anything ever being good, like how crazy could it get? And for some reason the phrase "suicide by cop" kind of came into my mind, and I'm like, oh, what about like suicide? Then I'm like, suicide by vigilantism. That phrase popped into my mind. I'm like, huh, it's interesting. So like, how about a guy who wants to end his own life, but he can't really bring himself to do it necessarily, so he just goes out and hits the street and hopes somebody takes him out, which, as we go, you see kind of creates a whole other bag of problems, because it's perceived that he's doing this altruistically, but in reality he's doing it selfishly, which creates even more self-loathing, and perpetuates the feeling. So it's just a lot of, I think, feelings that we all think in some fashion about ourselves in our life, and maybe for different reasons on different levels, but kind of placed into this story for everyone to see that we all feel this way for different reasons, and that's, our reasons are valid, and maybe it doesn't have to be as crazy as we think it should be.
Yeah. And then using the comic and putting it in the world of the vigilante aspect, like you're able then to, this came up I don't remember when this came up, but we were talking about like genre and how you can hide very brutal truths if
Mm-hmm.
you just put it in a different setting,
Yeah.
as opposed and like still tell the exact same thing, but on the
Right.
moon as opposed to in an alleyway in a downtown or whatever.
Yeah.
Like so putting dealing with those heavy emotions and out of all of this stuff that came out of COVID, because it wasn't until after COVID that I was like, I think I need to talk to a therapist. Like I should probably be on some antidepressant or something, because like what else do we have to do other than sit at our houses and like stare at the wall and
Yeah.
think about like what if this is forever? Like what I definitely had that conversation with my wife of like, babe, what if we're never allowed to go back out again? Like, what if this is just it now?
Right. Right.
And like, just the despair of that thought definitely had me spiraling for several days. Where it was just
Yeah.
like, I'm a people person. I got to be able to like awkward high five and do, you know what I mean? Like, I can't just always sit and do the screen thing. Like, if this was my only social interaction, I love doing this, but this would not cut it.
Yeah.
I'm an
Yeah.
in-person person. So it's definitely super real. And it's interesting that that's where your brain took it, was like, well, what if he was a vigilante? And it sometimes feels like daredevils have a death wish, right? Like they always talked about Evil Knievel doing all these insane things, and it was like, he's just got a death wish. Like and like super dismissive. But part of me has always thought like, yeah, but what if he did?
Yeah.
And like, what if he was doing this intentionally, not to be the best stuntman of all time, but like to try and, because he couldn't do it himself. Like
Yeah.
that's an interesting take of like, where's the line of I can't pull the trigger myself, but I can definitely, call out a thief or, confront somebody with a gun and maybe they'd pull the trigger. And
Right.
like that's a weird place to sit in. Like, how did you, when you were writing it, did you write everything all at once, or was it just, here's the first issue, I have ideas for later? And like, how did you get into and then come out of sitting in that?
I wrote it all at once. It's a 10 issue series. It was I guess I shouldn't say I wrote it all at once. I wrote it over kind of all at once, probably over the course of a year. What I did is I plotted it out. Like I knew how the first issue would open and end. And then I kind of started plotting it out. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do a series in perpetuity. I want it to be finite. So I'm like, I think I could tell the story in like 12 issues, right? I didn't want it to be longer than that. So I kind of broke down the main plot points and into issues, things I wanted to happen in each issue. Some issues I had pages of stuff I wanted to get done. Some issues was just like a sentence or two, right? I wanted to accomplish. And then I started scripting and going through and scripting the issues as I could and taking passes at it, going back and forth. Like I said, I probably wrote the whole thing over about a year by the time I was done with it.
Okay.
Taking all the passes at it. But at the end of it also, I truncated it to 10 issues because I really, if you read the first issue, I don't know if this resonates with you, but I really want the word I was in my mind, I wanted to convey on paper was relentless. I wanted it to just keep coming at you. Whether action or emotional pathos or it wants to keep hitting you and dragging you down further. That was my goal. And that is kind of continues the whole series. I also really wanted it to be like cinematic. I wanted to move more like a film than a comic book. And so, with those things in mind, I kind of wrote it a specific way. I started cutting fat and I moved it down to 10 issues because I really just wanted it to be like I said, I wanted no lulls. I wanted nothing where I didn't want to give anyone ever an opportunity to even blink, let alone yawn, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of wrote it all out. And coming in and out of it was not that hard for me. Um, you know, I don't want to say I'm fatalistic or nihilistic, but those things are, you know, again, things I've dealt with in life early and often. So it's not really, you know, it's just those are things I think about, deep things a lot, or topics that are heavy and matter. And to me, I'd rather do that than fluff, you know,
Yeah.
because those things are substantial and they really get me. That it also is the best meat for a story, you know.
Yeah.
Not that there's nothing wrong with like a fun, fluffy popcorn story movie thing. That those things have a place. Um, that's just not the stories I want to tell. I want to drag people into the to the shit, make them crawl around, and then have them get out and be like, "Oh, I get it. Like I think I see this differently now. Like I think I understand why that you need to look at those ugly things to be able to, you know, face life in general a little bit easier, you know,
Yeah.
a little bit different perspective. So
Yeah. And you've mentioned like seeing other people going through tough stuff in comics or in movies and being like, "Oh, I feel kind of better." So like was it intentional of trying to keep that in mind as you were creating the story of like if there's people that are feeling just like, "Oh, this sucks." Like, "Hey, you're not alone because this character is also going through some of that stuff." Like, or is that just a byproduct of your experience up until when you started writing it?
um, no, 100% there was intention to, you know, have that as a thing that people could look to and view that without giving too much away.
Yeah.
I want to. I guess I would say there's a way that, in my opinion, especially when you get to the end of this, there's a way for everyone to look at themselves as the main character. There's an access point for everyone to say, "Oh, like my reason for feeling bad is valid," you know.
Yeah.
Because I always say, like, the worst thing that ever happened to you is still the worst thing that ever happened to you, right?
Yep.
Like to you it's a 10 because it's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Now you start comparing to someone else's, you'd probably rather have your thing than someone else's potentially,
Yeah.
but in yourself you can't feel any worse than you've felt.
Right.
um, so that was definitely in mind when, you know, where I wanted everyone to be able to approach this. And you know, it's why I write from the point of view of the character. It's why he talks the way he does. It's the way he communicates the way he does. The things become more evident as this goes on as to how deeply you're in. How I don't want to sound pompous when I say this, but I think it cleverly it cleverly makes the reader the main character before you even realize it. Like you'll have gotten to the end and realized how much you've been sucked into to being him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And there, I'm glad that you mentioned like writing from his perspective because like in that first issue, immediately with him giving the narration, like I always loved the first person as opposed to the like all powerful, omniscient
right,
voice of like, and then he was sad. Like I
right,
don't, nah, I can't connect with that, but
yeah,
I can
yeah,
connect with the character's voice because then I can hear it and I see what he's going through and you know experience the story as he's telling it. But I love the like reusing of the like everything was going perfectly to plan. Like it just, it keeps coming back to that. And it's like, oh, so he's okay. Like even just the reuse of that similar phrasing
Mm-hmm.
stuck out to me and was like, huh, like I feel like I'm learning some character traits about him just by the sake of like he's falling out of the building
Yeah.
and and it's like everything was going just as I planned it. And it's like that doesn't look anything like a
Right.
plan.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love that like as a trick of just giving you that little bit of like insight into exactly how he's experiencing the moment, which then for you is like, oh, okay, yeah, no, he's got it under control. I don't know how, but we'll figure it out.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's yeah, I mean, it's words are important. The way it's finding that right tone. Just obviously fantastical to be a comic book, but also real enough for someone to read it and think, yeah, this is a person who's unhinged, thinking in a crazy situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and as someone who does stand-up comedy, like it takes a very specific Liam Neeson skill set of like to write comedy that lands and that works. So I'm curious, like I want you to talk about like writing for your stand-up stuff versus writing for comics
Mm.
and if there's any overlap in that process for you.
Yeah. First of all, in the chat, Hourglass Comics, yes, it was always planned to be a comic book. That is how it was written from the very start.
Mm.
So yeah, always wanted it to be a comic book. I think the only similarities between my comedy, writing stand-up comedy, and writing comic books is the process in which I ignite, I will say. And that process usually is me on a long road trip in a car by myself with no music on, yelling to myself like a psychopath for 5 hours. And that's kind of like my decompression time and my, time to kind of let everything out. I don't really try to grasp onto any one thing. I just kind of let my mind go, and it'll, I'll and go where it goes. Sometimes I start thinking about topical stuff and I'll start ranting, and it'll come out comical, and I'll say something funny and I'll be like, oh, that's funny. I should like go on that for a second. And I'll kind of explore that and think about some tags and some more beats to it. And that becomes comedy. And then sometimes I'll be thinking of something maybe more, more realistic. Like I do a lot of political commentary stuff, and so I'm always thinking. I consume a lot of news regarding our politics, and so I'm thinking about that a lot, and I will rage think about that sometimes.
To say it's no wonder you said you're sometimes pessimistic if you're always paying attention to politics.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's tough too because I hate both sides a lot. So it's a real tough situation for me. It's never a good day in the news.
Yeah, it's never a win-win.
No,
it's always
no.
lose.
It's always bad. I'm like, oh look, they're at it again. So, but it does sometimes things come out of that are ideas and like, oh, that is a really cool concept for like a story, or that's a really cool angle for a character, or that's like something I want to express my how do I metaphorically express that anger, frustration, or point in a story that's not me just talking about politics, So the only real similarity, like I said, is the ignition point after that. it's pretty different. Just because when I'm writing, the way I write stories is I usually, if I can see the opening scene
Mhm.
and the how it ends, I can usually fill in the blanks and be pretty inspired by it. If I can a really great opening, because if I don't find myself like a compelling opening, it just doesn't. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing to think about is like where stories come from and which ideas get held onto versus the ones that just like flow in, get bounced around, and then end up flowing right back out again. Because my brain is very just ADHD all over the place all the time. And so I'll have like 7 ideas all at once because I do the same thing with the, windows open, radio off, and I just like monologue with myself.
yeah.
And it's really like I'm an external processor. So I oftentimes just thinking about a thing doesn't help me at all. So I have to talk about it. And then hearing the words, like it only works when I don't hold back.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's like, ooh, I can't think that. And so like I have to let myself think that
Oh
thing
yeah.
or say
Yeah.
that thing to be able to then face it and deal with it. And one of the panelists over this past weekend, we were talking about like, finding your spark of creativity. And one of the things, like his closing words were, you have to face what you're scared of.
Yeah.
And like, it's when you do that, that you really get to like think about something that you wouldn't have chosen to think about anyway, because it's tough to deal with or think about or whatever. But when you actually sit in a space where you're just examining that thing, that's when suddenly your brain is working differently. And every time he said he does that, he gets something new that he can then turn into an idea, or at least get the pen moving if he's writing, or the pencil moving, because he's one of those talented people that does both. And I was like, you son of a so-and-so. And then I also was like, I can't say that because you're a really well-known artist. But and like as the moderator, I thought that, and I love this show because it's a safe space and I can have that back and forth. When it's someone that like is paid to be at the con as like a featured guest, and I'm running them on, and they say something, and I have that thought, that's when like I'll do this later. I'll save that for the show. And that's how this moment happens. Thank you, artist that I'm not going to name, but I think it's interesting how everybody has that different way that they come up with story, whether it's like, I got to see the opening scene. You mentioned writing the comic to be cinematic and like have it. How did you, like, what did that look like when you were working with your artist for conveying that movement, that motion on the page, as opposed to like a more stagnant, like Watchmen?
Yeah. So, well, yeah, go Dodgers, baby. It's we'll see how it goes this season, but go Dodgers. Yeah, sorry, that's in the chat, guys.
Yep.
So, a couple things like when people ask me my inspirations for comic books, they always expect comic book answers, which I have comic book creators I like a lot, but
Sure.
honestly, I look at comic books more like film, and I've worked in some film stuff and TV stuff, and so like I really like that approach to it, because there's so many things you can do to tell a story in film. In film, it's always, show, don't tell, right?
Yep.
And I take that approach a lot with comic books too, where I'm like I really work meticulously with my colorist, the way the book is colored and why, and the tones we use, the saturation we use, the colors we use. Some panels are like all red, some will be all blue, and like there's emotion being conveyed in all this, right? There's a story being told that way. And when I started writing this, I mean, I we talked about Clockwork Orange earlier. I'm a huge Stanley Kubrick fan. um, early Darren Aronofsky stuff. So like real, just the way scenes are set up is really interesting to me and important.
Yeah.
And my scripts are very meticulous. So I be, they're very, they're not quite Alan Moore where I'm going to tell you like what the wind time, what the wind is blowing, which way, and,
Yeah.
like so shit like that, but very meticulous. And then I do a lot of rough breakdowns for my artists. So he's very aware of how the panels are supposed to look. Shout out to my artist Felipe Sobrera. He's fantastic at bringing things to life and bringing his own energy and ideas to things at times too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really make sure that he's very aware, very specifically, and like things are done in a way that I want them to move, sometimes very quickly, sometimes slowly,
Yeah.
where we have talking heads, we have micro movements, in micro expression movements in characters, things like that,
Yeah.
that I think really like allow the scene to just like build this tension, because you're like, there's very little movement happening, but you're like, what, then waiting for the next thing to explode, and yeah, I think that is just a more cinematic approach, as opposed to like, we just need things to move and kicking happens and
Action lines.
yeah. So it's definitely very hands-on with the whole thing.
Yeah. And in a break, I'm going to come back to that. But because Gerald so helpfully mentioned it, I know I've got the Kickstarter link for the late pledges in the description, but I should probably include your website too. Yeah. Because you've got more stuff on the site. What's the website so that people can find you?
It's inferno.earth, and .earth is the domain. There's no .com. It's just inferno.earth. We have a store there, so you can order issue number 1, issue number 2, and you can pre-order number 3, which comes out in a couple weeks. We've got all the covers up there available. We do a main cover, a variant, and a foil cover for all the books too. So
that's great. And those foil variants, just because you mentioned them, are sick, dude. I love they're so rad.
Thank you. Yeah. The number 1 issue bloody foil variant, I sell that book 10-1 over anything else. It's bet. Like, especially when people see it in person, it looks good.
Yeah, I'm a sucker. As Hourglass knows, he did a spot foil bloody variant of his first issue of Murderface, and I was like, "That's the one I gotta get, dude!" Like, it's the blood splatter as foil. It just in any cover works so well.
It's a great look, especially if you got a print shop that knows what they're doing and can pull it off. It's a cool, especially when you're doing something specific, want the book to have a certain tone. So
yep. Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the focusing on the color palette with your colorist, because a thing that I do that I don't think anybody else ever does, nor do I recommend it, but it's my thing. When I have a digital book, I will just the first pass through is I just look at the pages to see what the composition's like, what the colors are like, what the overall feel is like. Mm-hmm. And I noticed as I was doing that the colors change as they go, because there's a page or two that has the same color tone, and then it goes to something different, and then when I read it I was like, oh, this match it, I see what they're doing. And but I'm a process junkie, and I that stuff is the stuff that I look at comics for, is to see I'm always, because I studied media, and I hate the media aesthetics, but I studied media aesthetics. That stuff matters. Yeah. And so I can always tell when it matters to the creative team as well, because it comes through. And so I love that folks are giving you all their money. And I Vaughn backed the Kickstarter initially. That's the best, right? It's just as you're going, do you find that every campaign you're adding new and more and more and more in your audience, or is it like, do you just have your core supporters that come back every time?
Yes and no. So it's funny. I have this I have this problem, um, and I was very cognizant of this on the first Kickstarter, but due to my full-time job, my of being a comedian, it means I'm a professional shit talker, and I say some crazy things on across meta platforms at times, and I am routinely shadow banned on their platforms. So much so that I literally a couple years ago was going to Florida for a show and was running an ad to sell tickets. And we were getting to the show and like ticket sales were slow. And I'm like, what's going on here? And I looked at the ad. Now don't get me wrong. Meta had taken all the money I put into the ad, but they had shown I looked at the analytics. They'd shown it to literally 0 people. So, yeah,
that's not how that works.
Yeah. So, this last Kickstarter, I made the mistake of talking too much shit. So I really had a hard time getting retention on social media for it. We do have a lot of returning people. Oddly enough, this is something I've struggled with a little. I get a lot of people who buy it, but they buy it once it's out. So they're not always backing the Kickstarter, but as soon as I have it in hand, I get a ton of messages. So it's like, I know it's going to sell. I know people want it, but I'm trying to be like, hey, can you just go to the Kickstarter, please? This would help make my life so much easier. I also, this time around, and we will continue to do this, is I'm experimenting with pre-ordering on the website. So my goal is to push more people to the website and have people order directly through us instead of using Kickstarter as an interface. Now we'll always, unless we get picked up by a major distributor, we'll keep running the Kickstarter because we do get some organic traffic. And if people want to back it that way, that's fine. But my goal is to continually move more and more of the audience to just pre-ordering directly from us.
Yeah. It's funny how the direct from us sentiment keeps coming up. At least with creative conversations that I'm having of I don't want to send people to my social media because that's just a billionaire's platform. Right. I want them to come to my website. I want them to come to my newsletter. I want them to hear everything directly from me. I don't want to have to pay Kickstarter fees. I want them to just be paying me directly through a website or whatever. But then I can just send them the book. And I feel like that's almost like a grassroots resurgence, or maybe that's just me hoping that it is. Because social media is so exhausting all the time.
Oh yeah.
And once someone said, I had never thought about it like that, but once someone said why should I be directing someone that wants to interact with me to a billionaire's platform? As soon as I heard it that way, because I can't help it. I'm anti-billionaire. Why do you have so much money? It doesn't make any damn sense. And so I immediately am like, well, how do I stick it to that billionaire? I don't want them to get my money or my, potential fans or readers' money. That should be going to me. I earned it. They didn't do anything to earn that or their cut or whatever. So I love that that's already something that you're thinking about. If you crack that nut, I want to know, because I want to steal whatever you do.
It's slow but steady. I'm trying to, the next step is building a more regular newsletter, or I'm working on doing some sort of exclusive content through the website, like a digital comic to get people there. There's things I'm working. It's just time, unfortunately. But there's things I'm doing to try to keep people engaged with that. a little more. Because yeah, I hate being on social media. I'd rather not be on there if I don't have to be. I'd rather get people coming directly to me and my content. And as we grow, I've got other series I'm working on. I'm working to get some other publisher or other creators published through my imprint, and so hopefully all those things will help. Get
Yeah.
just more of the people coming through our site and not just feeling like they got to go to Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm that's such a perfect transition of like what's the future hold for you? Are you like, other than, finishing out the Kill Stand series, like, are you going to be like releasing several titles at the same time? How does that look for you?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, yeah, blue sky scenario, yes. It kind of depends on, time and finances, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Luckily, Kill Stan. So the way I worked it is I'm like, I decided I was going to do this series no matter what. My goal was to just not lose money on it. So I financed the whole first issue, and then I ran a Kickstarter for it. And basically, I just put all the Kickstarter funds for number one. It rolled it into number two. So we're kind of doing it that way. So luckily and we're lucky that people have enjoyed it. I've been able to do a lot of conventions. We've gotten into a lot of retailers. So, we got in the black very quickly. And then, we just put all the money back into the product. The goal is to, I have a plethora of other series I want to do. I would, if I get to the point where I think it's feasible to finance multiple at a time, or the Kickstarters are, we're getting enough pre-orders and off the Kickstarter where I've got surplus that I can do that. That's, the thing is, like, I'm not trying to make this. I'm putting all the money back into this. So, I mean, if my Kickstarter makes $10,000, it doesn't mean that instead of, $4,000, it doesn't mean that I pocket $6,000. It means that I have $6,000 to fund another issue of something, and, I eventually, if enough of these, if I've got enough books going and it's making money, then yeah, great. If I can, pull some money, that's obviously great. But that's the goal, is to build the brand. I've got a bunch of series I'm working on, that are written, that just need to be get the art done. The next project is probably, I'm working on an anthology. I kind of want to do something similar to like heavy metal vibe.
Okay.
Not necessarily, I don't want to do a magazine size. It'll be comic book size, but it'll be that kind of idea where it's an anthology with different stories, maybe an 8-page story, maybe a 20-page story, whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
And they're kind of good, partly going to be a place to tell stories that are shorter, or tell stories that maybe I want to test the waters on to see if people bite on, be like, oh, we really like that. So maybe that's something we expand into its own book. And then, I've already talked to some other creators about publishing their work under the imprint, but it's tough because I'm very specific on what I want it to be, and I can't really. It's hard to quantify that. It's kind of like when the Senate was creating rules on pornography, and they said we'll know it when we see it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way about, people like, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, I'll know it when I see it. I want character driven, plot driven. I don't, I know that. I want it to have some weight to it, be substantial. So it's not like I'm just looking for any content to crap out. I really want things that are, a really driven creator that has a really meaningful story.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, like that's the beauty of indie comics too, is I feel like that type of story can only happen from an indie creator's laptop, pen, pencil, whatever. Like I just don't feel the same level of heart and energy in some of the bigger titles that are happening right now. And maybe it's just because I'm jaded and like my feelings have shifted on what I want out of a comic book. And if that's just me, that's totally fine. But I don't think it is. Like I think,
No, it's
and
not.
and like that's why I like doing. I don't like this. I love doing this show because I talk to people that have that heart, that have that like this is a story and a character that means something, and trying to convey this specific thing so that my reader feels
Yeah,
something and like experiences something, not just like, yeah, I made this book so that I could get a $10,000 Kickstarter payout. Like that's not for me, man. Like I'm not interested in the fluff and stuff comics that are just fluff for the sake of fluff, right?
yeah,
Like I'm looking for those meteor stories because there's so much meaty things happening in real life that back to the beginning, like I want to see that told in, give me that on the moon because it feels safer for me to feel those things if it takes
sure.
place on the moon instead of, a suburb in the Midwest. Because then suddenly I'm like, oh shit, that's my
Yes, it's a
house.
little too real.
That's
To home.
that's my neighbor. Okay. But
Yeah.
so what's the best place for? I know we mentioned the website. I know you've mentioned that you get shadow banned on social media or on Meta specifically, but like, what's the best way that people should be keeping up with you?
I mean, realistically, for the comic book, Instagram is where I'm most active. So we're inferno.earth on Instagram. So give us a follow there, trying to build the following as much as we can. It's where I post the most updates. It's where I post the most of original art that I'm doing for the book. Because I do all the covers and stuff like that. So
Okay.
post a lot of art pieces related to the book. And I mean, you can follow us on Facebook too, just because, but I oftentimes forget to repost to Facebook, to be honest with you. It's, you can also follow me specifically at Deece.comedy on Instagram or Deece Casillas on Facebook. DeeceComedy.com is my website. Or, Inferno.earth, bookmark the website too. And, we've got previews of number 1 and 2 up there. You can get digital. We got a whole shop. Like I said, you can pre-order number 3. You can buy digital copies. You can buy physical copies, and yeah. So.
Perfect. And because I like, where can people find your stand up? Is it do you have it on the website? Dog did not like that question. I apologize.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's my publicist. He no the. So yeah. I mean, I've got a YouTube page. I'm pretty bad at it. Again, I just hate social media. It's enough of like trying to upkeep Facebook and Instagram up to date is like a full-time job for me, and I really, it's
the worst.
so yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot. There's some stuff on YouTube. If you do go to my website, DeeceComedy.com, though, you can click on a link that's not your cup of tea. That is my special I released a couple years ago. It's a full hour shot in 4K multicam at one of my favorite comedy clubs in America in Bozeman, Montana. Believe it or not,
Shout out to Montana, man.
Yeah. It's a place called Last Best Comedy, and it's just amazing club. So I decided to film my special there, and I think I might be the only person to ever filmed a special in Montana. But it was great. We did 2 sold out shows back to back, and yeah. But you can click on that link, and then you can basically you pay whatever you want, and you can get we'll send you the special, the whole hour. So you can pay $5, $10. You can even pay $1. It's a dick move, but you'll still get it. So whatever you want to do, and you can get the whole hour. If you have delicate sensibilities, I suggest not doing that. If you're not a pussy, then go for it. It's a lot of fun. I make a lot of jokes. I joke about I have no sacred cows, and I cannot be offended. So I need you guys to know that. And that's how I approach comedy. I don't pull punches. I want to. I either everything's off the table or nothing's off the table, in my opinion. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't get to pick and choose personally what's precious to us and then tell other people what their moral line is. That's bullshit.
I love that. That's so good. Okay, so I'm officially out of notes, but I got two more things to do. The first, I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm going to use that as a YouTube thumbnail, mainly because it makes my life insanely easier to all the post stuff for this. So we're going to pose, get my keyboard shortcut, and we'll go in 3, 2, 1. Great. The other thing is the thing that I gave you the heads up about before we started. I love doing this show and I love talking to creatives because everyone has a different background and a different experience that led them into comics. And even with all those differences, we have the similarity of loving comics. And so I like ending every show with just giving my creators some space to share whatever message you want people to hear. It could be like, hey, go buy the comedy special and buy the comic and support everything and do all and give me all the money. It could be something like why Montana is better than Idaho. I don't care. I just want you to have space to share whatever it is you want people to hear from you. So take it away.
Well, first of all, I gotta say, since we brought up Pacific Northwest, people don't believe in Sasquatch. I think he might be real. I want to say that. People contend that by saying they've never seen Sasquatch. So can you believe in him? And that's fine, except I have a counterpoint. I've never seen a Chinese person eat cheese. How about that? Now what? I think, but I do believe anything's possible through our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I will say this about comic books. It is a vastly important medium to me for many reasons. It got me through a lot of hard times as a kid. It's something I still love. And obviously as a fan and a creator, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably at least in some way, shape, or form interested in comic books. But I'll say this. I challenge everyone out there to find a comic book for someone who doesn't read comic books. This is something I love to do in life, is find people who have never read a comic book and find a comic book that I think they would love. Because comic books is such a wide medium with so much to offer. People who aren't familiar with comic books think about it as superheroes, which is a genre, not a medium. And there's so much you can tell in comic books. You can tell every story imaginable. So, talk to people and find, start Christmas gifts. Find, for people you love, find a comic book that might be an entry point for them into a medium that opens a lot of doors. And I'm not saying it should be Kill Stan, although, it'd be great if it was. But I think there's some really great options out there. I will say that I think there's a lot of things from Brian K. Vaughan that are probably really easy access points. Something like even Pride of Baghdad, which is kind of I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's kind of a crazy. Yeah, it's a story about like this pride of lions that there are these animals that are in a zoo in Iraq when it was bombed in the war, and how they get out of the zoo because it's blown up, and they're kind of trying to understand this new life outside. They've never had this freedom, but I think it's a metaphor for it's like a metaphor for like understanding this new world of chaos in war times and things like that. So things like that. But there's anything. There's a million things out there. I mean, there's a fucking book out there called Bigfoot knows karate. It's exactly
there
what it
is.
sounds like,
Yeah.
it's not a clever name. It's not the shitty Beatles. It's literally, they're literally are, they literally are, it's just about Bigfoot knowing karate. So, find something that is for someone out there and give them that gift of comic books, because it is important stories are being told, or stories that can change people's lives and stories that can impact them, and really, open up new ways for them to look at themselves, at the world, at art, and also maybe help keep this medium alive that's on life support right now.
Yeah.
As we speak.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just hemorrhaging all the time. But dude, Deece, I had a great time talking with you. So thanks for just coming on and sharing all of the things. I appreciate it. Again, you've got the link below for the late pledges on Kickstarter. I'm going to update the description to also have the website so that people can easily find that. And then they can just bookmark inferno.earth and keep it forever. And then everything that you do, they'll have updates that way. So make sure that that's in the description. If you liked this, share it with some friends and subscriber stuff. Vote. More importantly, can you just vote for me for the CBC Awards for the most engaging host? That's what I want you to do for me. I don't care about subscriber numbers. I never have. Honestly, I didn't start this I have a job, right? I don't need money from my hobbies. Take that, Mom. I don't need to make money from everything. I can just enjoy doing a thing. So, but I really like awards, and I would love to win an award. And I'm like one of the finalists.
The good thing about being an adult, it's like you can just go to a trophy store and get an award. You can make an award for anything.
I'm not going to say that I've looked at doing that before, and that I know the prices of trophies.
To get a cake,
Right. What do you want for Christmas? An award?
Yeah.
Give me the award. I want a
outstanding achievement in the field of excellence.
Here's a piece of paper for doing a thing really well. Good for you. All right, hang tight. I got logistics for you after this, but for everybody else, thanks for signing off. This was a really active comment section, and that makes this whole thing feel more interactive and more like a conversation, which is the whole point. So thanks for tuning in, and it's good to see so many familiar names in the chat. Deece, I appreciate you spending a Monday evening with me.
Thanks for having me.
And so as a podcast, I got to have a tagline. Here's mine. Go do what's good for you, punks, and read some indie comics, because we are out of here.